Hey, this is Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater. Very happy to be here in Italy, and you are listening and watching Linea Rock.
Hi, Mr. Jordan Rudess of Dream Theater. Welcome to Milan and welcome to Linea Rock.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure to have you here.
All right.
So, we are here to talk about the Astonishing, which is a wonderful album which had the unanimous favor of the fans and media. You wrote the record actually almost in its entirety with your buddy, John Petrucci.
Yeah.
Did you work on the music first, or the concept story came first?
The first thing that happened is John Petrucci, my buddy, presented me with a synopsis of the story to look at. He had been working on it for quite a while, but he'd been waiting to present it because he felt like he wanted to present something really, really special.
Yeah.
So he finally handed it to me at the end of the last world tour, and I sat down and I read it, and I started to feel like, wow, this is really an amazing story. I like this so much. It just made me feel something. So I could totally start to hear some music in my mind. And as soon as I got home from the tour, I sat down at my piano and I started to write all these ideas, and I would send them to John, and we started kind of like almost a musical dialogue of sending each other ideas back and forth, which led to the next phase, which was very serious in the studio writing.
The record sounds more melodic than the recent ones. Is this your fault?
Not entirely, no. Everybody blames me for all the parts that are really sweet, but it's not true. Even the sweetest melodies in the Astonishing come from John Petrucci, which he had in his mind since he first started to conceive the story about 2.5 years ago.
All right.
So if you love the sweet melodies, you can blame me, but if you don't, please don't, because I didn't write those.
Okay.
I wrote other ones.
Okay.
So,
I like it, so I blame
excellent.
you. Okay.
Good.
So there's a very strong affinity between you and Petrucci, artistically and I guess also from a human point of view.
Yeah.
Was that immediate since the beginning, and what makes it so special since you worked with a lot of different artists in the past and also in the recent years?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting question, and it makes me think of a lot of things. For one, when I was brought into the band, I was brought in because John Petrucci really needed to have a writing partner. He was basically doing it by himself for the most part, writing the music. And so when they found me, it was kind of like, I think he was really excited about having somebody who could come in and kind of work with him instrumentally and figure out, all the things that needed to be done and take it to maybe a level that he, certain things John Petrucci, of course, is a total master at, and other things it's nice for him to have a keyboard player that has a different perspective and a different approach to harmony and melody and all those things. So I was brought in for that. So when I came in, I got, my job was as a composer as much as it was as a keyboardist. But up until recently, many years later, our relationship didn't kind of mature to the point where we could sit down together and do a project like this. When John conceived of the story, one of the first things he thought of is, wow, it would be really cool if Jordan and I could sit down just together, alone, without anybody else there, and just write this music. And in doing that, it felt like it solidified a relationship that's been maturing through the course of years. So, I would say that it's always been a really great symbiotic kind of relationship, but over the last years, and especially doing this project, we reached another level where we just kind of came together personally, musically, and enjoyed, working on this album. It was really cool.
And can we define the Astonishing, the most ambitious work of your entire career that includes Dream Theater and also everything else you've done?
Yeah, it was pretty huge. It was a very, very large undertaking. So I think we can pretty much safely say that, because it had so many factors. It was not only John writing this amazing story, but also all the music is 2 hours and 15 minutes of music or something like that make up this thing. And it was like composing music to a film score, really, or a musical. So yeah, it's definitely either the largest or among the largest projects I've ever done.
You chose very special venues this time for this Dream Theater tour, more intimate, which includes theaters like in Milan tonight. How is the show conceived, and how is it different than anything you've done before?
Yeah, when we wrote the music and put together this album, this experience, we realized early on that we wanted to present it in a live format. It's one of the reasons it's the length that it is. We wanted to make it something that was substantial and could be a presentation, could be a whole show. So we also wanted to present it differently than anything we've done before. We wanted to do it in smaller theaters where people could sit down and really enjoy the experience and have a different kind of a Dream Theater experience. We also invested in having a really beautiful video show during the concert, and we usually have great lights, so the lights in the video and this experience are really beyond anything we've ever done before. So I think it's probably in many ways the highest level, or you could even say the best presentation we've ever given, and we're allowing the audience around the world to sit down and absorb it. And I'll say something very briefly about that, which is that usually, in our concerts, especially in Europe, the audience is standing. So we have been kind of adjusting to the fact that there's more energy going out than necessarily coming back, because when you're seated, it's kind of mellow and you're just relaxing. But it's okay, because we also realize that the people are they're absorbing this, they're enjoying it. You can see at the end of the show when they finally stand up and give us some energy back that it's having a really big effect, which is very rewarding. So it's extremely different for us doing this show. It was maybe a brave album to do because it's so different. And the tour is also very different. We're just playing the Astonishing. It's not like there's anything else happening. So all in all, it's been a very different, exciting, nice experience.
And all the shows are going to be the same, since you have a strict concept to
yes,
follow.
Absolutely.
And
they're all we're presenting the show, and it's a very prepared, very planned experience from beginning to end. So in that sense, they're the same. So no set list changes?
No, definitely
not.
Okay. Yeah. And Devin Campbell worked on 450 albums in his career, from Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Anastasia, Phil Collins, Ricky Martin, Kiss, everybody. How did you approach him, and why him?
Well, we knew early on that we wanted to do this album in a different way, and because of the concept of the album, the whole dynamic between the machines and the natural music, and of course the story is all about that difference, and the kind of like this machine takeover and the people having a rebellion against that. We wanted all the Dream Theater music to be very natural, organic, and acoustic, while we wanted the electronic part to be really just all like my synthesizers to create this Nomax sound. So we decided that we wanted to have an orchestra and a choir instead of necessarily having the keyboard patches do those type of sounds. And of course we wanted to get somebody really great. So we did some research. We looked at some different names, and the first name that really came up and that we were aware of as well was David Campbell, especially because he had just worked on a Muse project not long before, and it was very much in our awareness. So we had our manager reach out to him thinking that there's no way, this guy's too busy. You look at his resume, it's not going to happen, but let's at least ask.
Maybe in 10 years' time, if you tell him now, he will allow you to work with him. But
So anyway, he came back and he said, "Oh, that sounds like a great project. It sounds really cool. I'd like to do it." Wow. Okay. So and working with him was an excellent experience, because he's not only a super nice guy, very low-key, but he's also a top-notch musician, and was able to not only orchestrate the music so beautifully, but he was also able to make all the logistical planning about who would record when and where and how.
So I know you're working on a computer game which will be based on the Astonishing. Is that correct? And are you considering also to make maybe a movie out of it?
There's all kinds of possibilities that are out there right now. At the moment, we have a book that's already been started. And we also have this game that a company up in Norway called TurboTape is doing, and they're actively doing that.
Yeah.
I think it'll be ready in the somewhat near future to try. And because because the story is so detailed, it loans itself very well to like a movie. There's nothing to report right now about that,
Okay.
but I think we're wide open to that. If the Astonishing would turn into like a musical and be eventually on Broadway, I think that would be fantastic. We're totally into that, open to it, and ready to work on that.
Great.
So, yeah.
Great. So you're going to be very busy in the last few years with
so.
the Astonishing, I guess.
I think it'll take some time to do all the things, yes.
And you also developed this GeoShred app for iPad and smartphones.
Yes.
What is it really exactly about, and how did you add the idea? Because also I know that you passed, you started with classical music, but you passed, to synthesizers as well, so you can combine and take, the best of both worlds, modern world and also classical world. So is this all, a connected design in a sense from your point of view?
Well, I've been involved with electronic instruments ever since I made the change from being a classically focused younger person to hearing Keith Emerson, who sadly is no longer with us as of a few days ago, hearing that and kind of changing my whole approach and realizing that the keyboards could have a lot of power and I could start using all these different sounds. And my passion for the sonic world and for experiencing and creating sounds was always so great. I've never been a quote-unquote technical person, but I somehow got wrapped up in the technology because it enables me to do all these amazing things with music. So that journey has kind of led me into interesting places, having worked with companies like Korg and Kurzweil and doing things with Roland and these days being a consultant for Roly, the makers of an instrument called the Seaboard, and having my own company, Wisdom Music, Wisdom with a Z, and also consulting for a company called CME who makes this really cool instrument called the X Key, which is a very great mobile keyboard. But anyway, so with Wisdom Music, my latest project, or instrument I should say, is called GeoShred. In many ways, it's the best thing that I've ever put out there as far as a musical instrument from my company for the world, because it's an instrument for the iPad. I don't really call it so much, it is an app, but I call it an instrument for the iPad because it really is, in my humble opinion, one of the only true musical instruments that you can run on an iPad. There's a lot of very creative, great things you can do with your iPad, but to actually call something a real instrument, that's another level. So I work with the guys at Stanford University out in California on this project, and we put together this instrument that is based on a technology called physical modeling. Physical modeling is a very interesting technology where they mathematically go in and figure out kind of like what makes an instrument kind of tick, how does it really work, and it creates a very organic, natural sound. So like on GeoShred, you can do these incredible things with feedback, kind of like a guitar. It's based on a physically modeled guitar. So you get a lot of cool guitar tones, but you can also take it and bend it and do other things as well. So it's a whole a new sonic world that we're kind of offering. It just came out like maybe 3-4 months ago. It's relatively new. So, yeah.
And the reviews has been, positive,
great.
and mostly from young people or
a lot of
everybody.
People. Well, it's very, very cool technology. The physical modeling is amazing, and I'm working with some of the people that were involved in physical modeling since the beginning. There's a fellow who's the scientist kind of behind the whole thing, a professor at Stanford, whose name is Julius Smith, and he's like the guru of physical modeling, and he's one of my partners in the project, and we have a great time just making these cool instruments for the world to check out.
Prog rock has been defined as the evolution of classical music. Is it exactly like that from your point of view, from your experience?
The evolution of classical music?
Yeah.
I think it's I think progressive rock was a definite evolution, and the big evolution kind of happened in the '70s with bands like Genesis and Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and all that, where they kind of opened this wonderful door to the possibilities of including classical harmonic and rhythmic ideas within a rock kind of foundation. So nowadays with bands like my band, Dream Theater, we kind of carry that torch. We continue to infuse these more advanced musical ideas like harmony and melody and rhythm on a rock structure. But at the same time, like in my world, I add like the element of technology to it, and I'm very open to where technology is going to lead us musically. So progressive rock, in a sense, is kind of like an opening and a continuation of classical, for sure.
Last question.
Yeah.
You mentioned before Keith Emerson, which just passed away.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned him as one of your main influences always. Do you have any sweet memory about him? Did you ever meet him, or do you remember the first time that you heard your music? Something that you want to share with us?
Well, I met Keith Emerson a number of times over the years, and probably the first handful of times that I met him and said hello to him, he had no idea who I was and never remembered me. And it was sad because he was my keyboard hero.
Yeah.
But finally, after meeting him numerous times, I had done an album that was an Emerson, Lake and Palmer tribute album. And I met him this time, and I went up to him and said, "Hi, my name is Jordan Rudess. It's nice to see you." He said, "Oh, I know you." He says, "I didn't like that album at all, that Emerson, Lake and Palmer tribute. I thought it was really not very good. But what you did was great."
Okay.
I said, "Oh, wow, thanks." And then I met him like a couple years later again, and I had done my own version of Tarkus on my album called A Road Home, where I covered some of my favorite progressive music.
Yeah.
And he and his girlfriend at the time said that they loved it and that she would dance around the house to it. And he wrote a beautiful kind of commentary about my work on his, on my version of Tarkus. So he really loved it. And we had finally, after years, become very friendly. I always had his birthday party, and he would come to my shows, and so it was really, we're still, kind of like experiencing this extreme loss, and not only a friend of mine, but also somebody who had such a huge influence on my life path. It's really, really sad, actually. So, yeah.
Okay, so Jordan, I guess your next few months or years will be like absorbed by this Astonishing project, but will you have time also for some solo stuff? And I mean, I'm asking, how can you combine, all
it's
this
hard. Well, let's see.
Huge amount of work.
Yeah. So the last breaks that I had in my work, I did a solo album called The Unforgotten Path, which is a piano album I did at home on my 9-foot Steinway Grand, and I played some songs that I've been kind of playing for years that I never recorded. Some cover songs, but also some original songs. So that was really fun. And then I also found some time somehow to do a new album, or almost complete a new album with Tony Levin and Marco Miniman. So that's going to be expected like in the fall. I have a little bit more work to do on that when I find some time or in between tours, I should say. And then I have plans when Dream Theater's done touring to do something really cool in a rock vein that would be new as well. So
you can never relax. That's
I relax with music. That's the thing. If I want to relax, I do something like Unforgotten Path, which is very calm and mellow and nice. And, so.
Okay. Thanks for your time, Jordan.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the tour and hope to see you soon.
Awesome. All right,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.